talking about new disinvestment policy, the new disinvestment policy was unveiled by the finance minister in the budget, and it talks about, it has redefined the or classified the strategic and non-strategic sector again, right? What we discussed, that railway, atomic sector and defense was prior in the strategic sector, but now this has been revised. And what the government is saying, the government is saying that they have classified four sectors as the strategic sectors, and it is first group covers atomic energy, space and defense. Second covers transport and telecommunication. Third covers power, petroleum, coal and other minerals. And fourth group covers banking, insurance and financial services. Right? These are the four sectors, which four groups more specifically, which have been identified by the government of India as strategic sector. Now, besides all these sectors, the government says that all other sectors, all other PSUs will be in the non-strategic sector. Non-strategic sector means the government has no business to do business or in the non-strategic sectors. That means either they will be privatized or closed. Either they will be privatized, that means either they will be outright sale, or if nobody is the buyer, then they will be closed, or their asset monetization will be done. So, and what about the strategic sector? They are saying that in the strategic sector there will be minimum of one public sector in each group, minimum of one, right? In sector like, for example, in power, they will be having minimum one and maximum four. So in case of petroleum, they will be having minimum one or maximum four public sector units. All other units, that means in a particular sector, a government can have maximum of the four public sector units, and all other public sector units will either be closed first or privatized, either be closed or privatized, or they will be merged with the existing PSUs. For example, if talking about oil companies, then what they will do, for example, they want to keep only one public sector unit, then what they will do, they will, for example, keep ONGC with them. Now what about IOCL, right? IOCL, then they will either sell it or merge it with the ONGC. So this is how disinvestment will take place in case of present scenario. There are certain exceptions. The exceptions are, this policy will not be applied on public sectors like major port trusts, right? Airport Authority of India, and undertakings in security, printing and minting, all the printing presses which are dealing with this printing of currency and minting of the coins. Public sector entities such as not-for-profit companies or CPSEs providing support to vulnerable groups, like any public sector unit which is dealing with the tribal areas, right, which are dealing with providing food to the people. So it is up to the government to decide about that, right? It's the call of the government, and the government has to take decision on that. Then prior to this, now the process of privatization, the key player in the privatization, the process of privatization is Niti Aayog. This will basically recommend PSU for retention in strategic sector. They will recommend that which PSUs are supposed to be kept in the strategic sector and which are to be privatized. And on based upon the recommendation, it will be considered by core group of secretaries on disinvestment, and final decision will be taken by alternative mechanism, which will comprise of finance minister, minister for administrative reforms, and the minister for road transport and highways. And this DPAM, this is the most popular department. You might have heard this now and then when you are going through newspaper regarding this investment. The key department, which comes under the Ministry of Finance, and it can approach the cabinet for strategic disinvestment for a specific PSE from time to time. Basically, this DPAM is engaged in the process of disinvestment. It is very specific department which deals with the disinvestment. Niti Aayog is a sort of generalistic group which is taking care of this, but this is very specific. DPAM is specific to disinvestment, right? DPAM is basically deals with all matters relating to management of GOI investments in equity, including disinvestment of equity and CPSUs, And the four major areas of its work relate to strategic disinvestment, minority stake sales, asset monetization, and capital restructuring. Do you have any idea of asset monetization? Anybody having the idea of asset monetization? This term is again and again used by the government of India that either we will do the disinvestment or we will have the asset monetization. See, asset monetization is basically this. For example, the government is saying that if you see this list, the government is saying that we will have telecom sector and transport, creating new sources of revenue.
It's a looking for the infrastructure development.
Sorry.
Infrastructure investment. It's a looking for government is looking for the infrastructure investment.
Okay. See what happens that as I said that the government has said that okay, they are not going to close or privatize the BSNL, for example, right? Now, because there are a number of issues, or the government would like to have it with them, telecommunication, like they feel that they are in the strategic sector. Do you know that if you see the BSNL, particularly I'm referring to the BSNL, you will find that in every city, the BSNL is having land in the core, in the heart of the city. Right? For example, if I talk about Delhi, then you will find that at MTNL, even BSNL is having uh, their land in the heart of the Delhi, that is Connaught Place. Right? MTNL is having buildings in Hoj Khas area, and that too in acres. It's not like in a single room. It's not like in 100 square meter room, right? It's in acres, right? So selling of unused asset to generate revenue. Very good. Umang is right to an extent, right? So asset monetization means go word by word asset, right? Asset monetize. Monetize simply means that you want to convert into to money. You want to um, convert your asset into money, right? That is basically asset monetization. You want to sell it, you want to sell your asset and monetize and want to exchange it with the currency. You want to sell it, right? You are not selling the whole company, but you are selling its certain assets. तो asset monetization में क्या है इन्होंने what they are see what they are telling that the companies like BSNL, we are not going to sell them, but we will monetize their assets with them. For example, if the land of the BSNL is in Connaught Place, so it might fetch government crores of the rupees, and in every city the BSNL is having the land. So what they will do, they will, does this mean to liquidate? Yes, it means to liquidate, right? It actually means to liquidate. Right. So the most important asset with these companies is basically land. Right. So this is asset monetization, the example of asset monetization. Right. Strategic disinvestment, I already explained it to you. Then it is transferring the ownership and control of a public sector entity to some other entity, right? Mostly to a private sector entity. The simple, unlike the simple disinvestment, strategic sale implies some sort of privatization. Right? The Disinvestment Commission defines strategic sale. It implies the sale of a substantial portion of the government shareholding of a CPSE of up to 50% or such higher percentage as the competent authority may determine, along with transfer of management control. The core is the government has to transfer its management control, and it is only possible if the stack of the government reduces either below 50% or there is no stack of the government in the company. So that is basically strategic sale. So if we talk about advantages of strategic disinvestment, it is basically improving the structure of incentive and accountability of PSU. Already discussed. Financing the increasing fiscal deficit. See, when I was discussing that why PSU failed, then there was a point that it was anticipated that the public sector unit will result into profits to the government of India. But what happens, the PSUs went into the losses. And when they went into the losses, that means the load on the government start increasing, resulting into fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is nothing right now, only understood it as that it is loss of the government, right? That means the budget is going into the losses. I'll explain technically in the later on classes. Then financing large scale infrastructure development. See, if what is happening right now, for example, in case of Air India, if you see, the government is financing the salaries of Air India people, right? Now, if the government executes the sale of this Air India, then what will happen? On a year-on-year basis, the government has not to give uh, money out of the budget for getting Air India uh, functioning on a day-to-day basis, right? That amount will be saved, and despite that, and apart from that, the government will have one-time payment against its sale, and that money which was supposed to be given to the Air India to in the form of salaries to the employees, that money will be used for large scale infrastructure development, right? It is for investing in the economy to encourage spending. Definitely, when this money is available with the government, then this money will be used for the spending in the infrastructure project, which finally will uh, give momentum to the economy, brings about greater efficiencies for the economy. Already explained, because PSUs are having certain sort of inefficiencies, and by putting them in the public domain or privatizing them will result into the efficiencies in the economy. Bring relief to the consumers by way of more choices, right? That means the best example to understand is the example of telecom. During the time of BSNL and MTNL, we are having only choice of BSNL, and now you see you are having n number of choices. For retiring government debt, since a big part of the center's revenue receipts go towards repaying public debt, it is self-explanatory. To encourage wider share of ownership in an enterprise, because more and more participation of the people will increase. To depoliticize non-essential services, I explained by taking the example of railway. Reducing the fiscal burden, improving public finances, encouraging private ownership, funding growth, maintaining and promoting competition in the market, right? All are self-explanatory or either has been explained in the previous discussions, right? Prior to that, I will come to this thing. This is basically certain suggestions or ideas which have been implemented across the world in case of PSUs, right? So the best example, even in this, I have already explained this, Temasek model of Singapore. There is an idea of that shareholding company. Shareholding company. The shareholding company, the idea of the shareholding company is like, it says that the government will not be directly involved in the functioning of the company, right? Rather, it will make a shareholding company. For example, they made a shareholding company for oil sector, right? Then what this oil sector will do, it will take care of day-to-day functioning, and not only day-to-day, but as well as the strategic decision making of the companies. And this shareholder company will be having the representation of the government of India, right? And this shareholding company will be having technocrats, and these technocrats will be taking decision about the oil sector companies. How it will be taking decisions? It will be taking the decisions by only manipulate, by first analyzing the market, and then taking actions according to the market sentiments. For example, what the shareholding company will do, they will analyze that if they analyze that in the coming times the oil might get costlier, so the share of the oil companies will improve. So what they will do, they will invest in the oil companies. If they feel that in the coming years the oil market will be down, then what they will do, they will reduce their stake in the oil sector companies. So this is how they will work, right? So this is very one of the best accepted model, the best model across the world which has been accepted, and is Singapore's Temasek model. Secondly, you can talk about the models of Sweden and Thailand, where PSUs are insulated from the functioning from the government, right? And then you can also talk about regulatory body. Regulatory body is something sort of similar to the Singapore, right? So these are certain examples which can be taken cognizance of and are accepted across the world, right? If you talk about UK, in UK what is happening, that again the government is having the overall holding of the for example railway in Britain. The government is overall custodian of the railways, but the functioning, the operational part rests with the contractors, right? So this is all about, and all these suggestions are nothing but the previously explained, right? So go through it. Then this is, if you see this cartoon, so it's telling after grand success of phase one and uh, one, two, and three trials. Right? This is basically nothing but your economy was not doing well during the time of this prior pandemic, right? The condition was not good. So then they are saying we finally have the vaccine, and this vaccine is nothing but this money, this 2021 money is coming from this investment, right? This is how this is the cartoon. And again, if you see this government to go ahead with this investment of 23 PSUs cleared by cabinet, Nirmala Sitharaman is saying, then these are certain businessmen and they are saying that is anything left, anything at all. Then the cartoon shows that government of India has put everything on sale. So what about economic reforms? COVID, does this mean to liquidate? Sir, what about economic reforms? What sort of economic reforms you are talking about? I didn't get you. Sita Lavanya, I didn't get your question. What sort of economic reforms you are talking about? So what about economic reforms? I read an article in Hindu. See, economic reforms are basically when this government came, the Modi government came. If you talk about economic reforms they have undertaken, then demonetization was also part of that reform. GST, yes, GST is one of the reform which was long awaited, and it's, yes, it's a reform. And then they are like everything which they are claiming, the government is claiming, actually is a part of economic reform, right? And this disinvestment is again part of economic reform, because if we, when we will discuss economic reforms one, new economic policy 1991, which we will be explaining in detail in the coming class, in that the privatization was part of that reform, right? The process of disinvestment basically started from 1991 onwards. So when we were discussing PSU in the starting, I said to you that in 1991, what these people did, these people have a arrangement of memorandum of understanding, that is MOU. And what these people were doing, these people were, the government was having an understanding with the public sector unit, and they categorized these public sector units as Navratna and Mini Ratnas based upon their performance. That was basically part of economic reform, and they were categorized as economic reform number one, right? And economic reform 1.0. So whatever these reforms are going on, any some economists can say that it is basically economic reform 2.0, right? So it's up to the economists how they categorize all these things. But yes, the government claims that whatever we are undertaking, like demonetization, this GST, and this strategic disinvestment, aggressiveness on the this disinvestment, is nothing but a part of economic reforms, right? And later on we'll. So what about economic reform? Okay, right. Then if you see that there, this banking, privatization of banking, consolidation of the banking, a merger of the banks, right? Privatization of the banks. It's basically economic reforms. That is different story, that how it works, right? What matters, for example, if the government right now is saying that we will sell everything, But might be there are n number of negative repercussions of all those things. If you are privatizing everything, that means you are not providing jobs to the people, and if the people are not being provided, if you can recall, see, whenever Manmohan Singh is writing anything, again I am telling you, whenever Dr. Manmohan Singh is writing anything in the form of article, please go through it and try to understand what he wants to say, because he is giving 3 or 4 points, but mark his words that his 3 or 4 sentences matters a lot, and what he writes now, actually, he writes after a lot of analysis. I'm talking what even he writes now, right? I'm not talking what he has written. I'm talking even whatever he writes now still, right? For example, when demonetization came, he commented that the GDP growth rate will be down by 2%. Exactly, it was down by 2%, right? And recently, when he also he wrote an article, and in that article, what he said that economy should be, where can we find his articles, sir? See, no need to find his articles, but as and when the situation reminds, you will find it in the papers, right? You will, every newspaper covers his article. Whenever he speaks, his articles are analyzed. uh, no, every newspaper covers his statements. And secondly, you can also follow Raghuram Rajan. What Raghuram Rajan says, whenever he's saying something, please follow him, right? Because these people are not, or like people like Kaushik Basu, and uh, whenever these people are saying something, right, then you have to follow these people, right? You have to follow these people. So yes, what I was saying, that RBI governor, the then RBI governor, the ex RBI governor, right? So what Dr. Manmohan Singh in the recent article says, he talked about that, if you want to understand the economy, then don't try to dissociate it from the social spectrum. That means economy cannot be separated from the social part, right? So what does it mean? It means that if you see the economy right now, what's happening, that you are privatizing everything, right? Privatization means the people are losing jobs. When the people are losing jobs, people are not having the jobs, and you are having, the government is having money, right? What is the benefit of that money? Because I told you that if and only if the money is in circulation, then only the economy can survive. So when I was discussing, I don't know whether I have discussed it with or not. If in after the Second World War, when this the Second World War, prior to Second World War, during the time of depression, when Keynes was asked the solution in US, that what can be a solution for this depression, then he simply told, dig wells and fill the wells. And I told you that Narega is based upon this concept: dig the wells and fill the wells. Right? That means the money should be in the circulation. There is no benefit of the government if the government is sitting on the huge funds of money. Rather, the money should be with the people so that it can be circulated in the economy. So that's what I'm saying. What he wants to convey, Dr. Manmohan Singh wants to convey, that means if the society is not doing good, if the people are not feeling well, then what's the benefit of doing all these things, right? So there is pessimism. If you talk to the people, I don't know that what's happening in Hyderabad and in the southern India, but if you see in North India after this COVID demonetization, so there's lull in the investment, because people are so much of pessimistic, so much of vulnerabilities are there, uncertainties are there. So what he wants to say, if the people are not optimistic, because I already told you the economy is mostly about the sentiments, it's mostly about the sentiments, right? So this is how things, they are claiming that it's economic reforms, but yes, still it has to be seen that what will be the outcome of all these reforms. For example, the government claims that in demonetization, they were claiming we were having so much of black money and this and that. but still people are waiting for that because RBI does not have exact figures that what sort of what volume of black money um, came back to the Reserve Bank of India. Right. Then fiscal policy measures providing jobs by government. I didn't get you, Shrikant. What you want to convey?
Sir, whether government providing the jobs is a physical policy measure or
See, fiscal policy and providing jobs, government can see, government alone can't do anything. That's what I'm saying. At least there is a policy of every actor in the, there is responsibility of every actor in the economy. For example, if the private sector is watching the government and they are saying that the government is right now not hiring anybody for the permanent job, the government in itself is hiring the people on contract, then this is a direct indication to the private. When the government is hiring contract people, then who we are, we will also continue with the private with the more this operation of the people, right? So ultimately what happens, they will try to manage work in lesser with lesser number of people, right? So it's everybody who has to play the role, right? But government has to prepare an ecosystem. What matters is the ecosystem more than providing the jobs. It's the ecosystem which is being, which should be provided by the government. Yes, jobs are to be provided by the government, this is also their policy. So fiscal policy, yes, fiscal policy, it's part, providing jobs is a part of fiscal policy in the sense that if the government is providing jobs to the people, money is coming out of the government's pocket. And I told you fiscal policy simply means the expenditure of the government, right? So if the government in itself is providing the job, yes, it becomes a part of their fiscal policy. But it's not only the government which should provide the job, right? N number of players are there. So they should ensure an ecosystem where all these things are working, right? Talking about issues, one small, हाँ बताइए तीर्थ।
Sir, those strategic sectors are one which they want to disinvestment or which they want to keep to themselves, like government.
Strategic sectors are those sectors which government will be having with them first thing, but there is a rider. They are saying that in even in the strategic sector, they will be having only minimum one company and maximum four company. That means there cannot be maximum four companies in a particular strategic sector. All other companies, even in the strategic sector, might be closed or privatized. That's it, right? Then there are certain issues with the disinvestment. Uh, the best example, I'll tell you, Google it. I think 2 or 3 months back, uh, Arun Shourie, I think you might be knowing his name. If you don't know his name, Arun Shourie, Google him. He is one of the, even I have, time and again, I have taken his name in my discussions. Arun Shourie was the Minister of Disinvestment in the government of Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji first. Secondly, he is a well-read person. He is an economist. He is a political analyst, and he's a very learned person, right? He was summoned by Jaipur High Court 2 or 3 months back, and the reason was it was the case which was related to the disinvestment of I think Lakshmi Vilas Hotel in Jaipur, right? And the argument was that he executed the disinvestment process and sold that hotel at throwaway prices. And this is the one of the argument which is against the process of disinvestment, right? And the argument goes like this, that the politicians are having collusion with the private players, and under that collusion, these people sell these companies, these assets at throwaway prices. Right? For example, if you see right now and the very popular term, there was a popular term, there's a term, have you heard the term crony capitalism? crony capitalism. Crony. This is a term which was very much popular during the time of UPA 2 government. UPA 2 government, yes, you're right. Nexus between bureaucrats, capitalists, and politicians. Yes, this term was very much popular during the time of UPA government, and it says that the capitalist, that is the businessman, is having the collusion with the government
It
of
is a
India.
relationship between the business leaders and government officials.
Yes, the government of the people in the government sector who are uh, in the seat of decision making, they are having collusion with the businessman. And how is it impacting? Actually, the key decisions are being impacted by these businessmen. So the government is taking the decisions on the direction of these businessmen. So if you see the best, this crony capitalism was highlighted during Neera Radia tapes. You can Google it, Neera Radia tapes. Neera Radia tapes. Google it. And even in these tapes, Tata families, Tatas were also implicated, right? So what happens in these Neera Radia tapes? Barkha Dutt, journalist, very popular journalist, she was managing the portfolios in the government of India, and she was having relationship with all these people, with the businessman, right? She was managing everybody, right? So this is the level. This is chronic. So if you see the present dispensation, so time and again you find that Rahul Gandhi and this. Do you know Rakesh Tiketh? Do you know Rakesh Tiketh?
Yes, sir.
Rakesh Tiketh is basically, if you this farmers agitation is going on, he is the key player. Basically, he is spokesperson of the this Bharatiya Kisan Union, but he's the most popular face of this farmers agitation, and you will find him along with Yogendra Yadav, right? So whenever he speaks, he says that कि सरकार तो बिजनेसमैन के हाथों में खेल रही है. ही इज ऑलवेज सेइंग दिस, राइट? सरकार बिजनेसमैन के हाथ में खेल रही है. देन ही इज बीइंग आस्क्ड के सरकार कहाँ से, कौन सरकार को आदेश दे रहा है? देन ही ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू से दैट it is the businessman who is giving dictations to the government, right? So what is, and you will find that Rahul Gandhi is always saying like the government is under the having the dictation from only two families, that is Adani's and Ambani's, right? So this is basically, this is the issue with this investment, that it is being argued that the government is not realizing the fair prices of their assets, right? So if you see this, to complete the disinvestment targets, government asks one PSU to buy shares of another PSU. This is also one of the issue. For example, if you see the 3 or 4 years back, the government was planning to sell this HPCL, right? But what happens finally? This HPCL was purchased by ONGC, right? So ONGC also belongs to the government of India. HPCL also belongs to the government of India. LIC to IDBI, I don't think so that it has been done. The government is still waiting for, has not come out with the idea of this LIC, right? So I think this is not final till now. So if the HPCL, which belongs to the government of India, is purchased by ONGC, which is also government of India, PSU, then that means what you are doing, you are taking money from one hand and giving to another hand, right? So there's no realization of actual disinvestment. Then ordering LIC. Normally what happens that in the past, what has been observed, whenever the government wants to have money, they ask LIC to buy ONGC shares, right? Iski topi uske sir. They are always asking LIC to buy shares of PSUs, right? Then disinvestment would lead to private monopolies. This is one of the factor. The best example to understand is Jio. How Jio has monopolistic tendencies, and it has wiped out almost all the telecom player from the telecom sector. The fund received from disinvestment are used to finance fiscal deficit. This is unhealthy practice. See, what matters is that how the money which is received against the disinvestment is utilized by the government of India. If this money is utilized for the infrastructure, then it's fine, right? But if this money is utilized only to sustenance of the government, right, to carry out day-to-day expenses, then it is disastrous for the government, because you sold your assets and the debt too only for maintaining your day-to-day expenses. This is unhealthy practice. Then government's dividend income will decline. I already told you that when the government is having the dividend from these public sector units who are in profits, if you have sold your assets, then you will not receive dividend on a regular basis. Consequently, fiscal deficit will increase. Socialist ideology, private sector cannot achieve equal distribution of resources for all classes. Yes, this is an idea that private sector will take care of only the customer or consumer. Then who will take, if the government is exiting from every sector? For example, if the government is not having public sector bank, then to whom government can force that go to the people, go to the villages, go to ensure that all the schemes which are related to the marginal section of the society are to be implemented, right? So these are the challenges before the government, that how they will execute the concept of welfare state. Private enterprises only focus on profit maximization. Yes, they won't cater poor people. Therefore, government need to control all or some industrial sector. So this is how the challenges of the disinvestment. And this is again an issue. Allegations that PSEs are sold cheap to preferred parties. The Balco को जो बेचा गया था, so they are saying disinvestment offer more than 60 PSUs. Buy these shares at reasonable prices. You cannot buy rice, dal, vegetables anyway. That means the prices of the disinvestment, or they're available at throwaway prices, that is at very cheaper prices. Right. So this is all about your public sector units. Any query you can ask. So if you see this, Uh, influenced by the colonial experience, Indian economy post independence was command economy, already discussed. Then it was marked by quota, license Raj and permit Raj. Inefficiencies were there. Government was having less resources to invest, and the rate of growth was Hindu rate of growth. Closed economy, having import substitution. Rupee was non-convertible. This is a new thing, and I have to explain it in the later on classes. Right, so don't worry about it. In 1980s, government expenditure exceeds its revenue to the extent that it becomes unsustainable to meet the expenditures even through borrowings. Right. Immediate reason for reforms. There was Iraq-Iran war in 1990s, and this Iraq-Iran war resulted into hike in the petrol prices. That means you need more forex reserve to ensure the imported inflation. Collapse of USSR, it was also one of the reasons, because you imitated USSR, you followed USSR, and when it collapsed at that time, that means to an extent it also shattered the idea of socialism, and we were following that idea. So to an extent we were also shattered. In 1980s, China under Deng Xiaoping undertook market-friendly reforms. Right? Asian financial crisis of 97-99 led India down. Basically, this Asian financial crisis of 97-99 was because of uh, currency issue tha. Right? I will explain it when I'll be discussing currency convertibility. This was basically a negative repercussion of opening up of the economy, because these countries in 1970s 80s adopted the opening up of the economy, and they adopted LPG reforms in 1970s 80s. And then what happens in during this time, these economies were shattered by the foreign investor took out the money out of these economies, right? So it also have an impact on country. External and internal factors resulted in high inflation, right? This was the reason for high inflation. And besides that, there was economic instability in the country. Political instability was there, right? Because it was said that at that time, after 1984, there were Rahul Gandhi came, oh, Rajiv Gandhi came, and after the death of Rajiv Gandhi, PV Narasimha Rao came. But at that time, there was so much of political instability, and it is said that it was only the political acumen of the PV Narasimha Rao that how he managed his government for 5 years, right? And number of scandals were there, Shibu Soren, Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, and all those things were very much popular at that time. Huge non-developmental expenditures, increased fiscal deficit, government liabilities increased to the extent that borrowing was insufficient for the government. India's forex reserve at its ebb, at its lowest. Forex was insufficient to pay for the two imports of 2 weeks. And this was the major reason why India was forced to approach World Bank and IMF for financial support. Right. So this is all about today. If you're having any query, you can ask. Right. After that, we will be discussing tomorrow. I'll continue with this. Any query you can ask. Anybody who is having any doubt. Okay. Can you please share the relevance of each topic to the UPSC syllabus? See, if we talk about this planning PSUs, I expect that question can come from PSUs this time, because everywhere you are hearing this thing. And talking about LPG reforms, yes, they can. There's a specific topic that analysis of this LPG reforms. Questions might come from LPG reforms, and basically the idea of the this understanding of your inclusive growth. You cannot understand inclusive growth without understanding this planning, this PSU, and then LPG, right? So we have to go through it only. It's a part of syllabus. Whatever we are going through, it's a part of the syllabus. You can let us what you expect to be important as well as areas where questions have come from in the previous years. Okay, see, like for example, that's what I have asked you, that please purchase or download all these things, this last year question papers. This you have to do. And whenever for example, there was a question on disinvestment, I think in 2011, they simply asked that disinvest, what is disinvestment? Why the government is undertaking disinvestment in 2011? This question was asked. So might be this time the government is very aggressive on this. So they can ask you strategic disinvestment. They can ask you any question related to the contemporary disinvestment policy, or they can ask you what are the implications of disinvestment. Right? They can ask. Right? LPG normally they used to correlate this question for mains. Right? But this you have to understand. So it's better that mostly if we talk about that part, the questions are coming regularly, that will be monetary policy. I'll be covering it in the next classes. Monetary policy, your trade, your budget, your money supply, right? All this, whatever we are discussing, it's for the understanding, and questions can be asked. Questions will be coming from your understanding basically in the mains, right? So without this, we can, these are basically building blocks, because you should know what was happening after 1947, what went wrong that we adopted this LPG, right? Why we are adopting disinvestment this time, why the government is aggressive on disinvestment, what is strategic disinvestment, why it is popular right now, how is it different from disinvestment? So these all are questions, right? So we'll see you tomorrow.